Hello everyone and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. Sarah Kellen Vickers, Leslie Groff, Adriana Ross, Nadia Marcinkova. The core four, folks. For how long have we been talking about these vile women? How long have we been hoping that these women would be brought to justice? Well, according to a report in the Telegraph, these women are under investigation. And not only is the Telegraph reporting this, I can independently confirm this as well from my source. A source has reached out to me just a few minutes ago, basically, and confirmed the fact that these women most certainly are under investigation as we speak. Now, I don't know when there's going to be arrests. I don't know when they're going to be brought in. I don't know if they've been brought in already. But I can say, it most certainly seems as if the wheels of justice are starting to grind. These four women played a huge role in what Jeffrey Epstein was about. These four women acted as lieutenants underneath Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and helped facilitate this whole entire sordid sex trafficking scheme that they were running. Recruiting girls, paying girls, grooming girls, you name it. You name it. And one fixture that was always with Jeffrey Epstein, a fixture that seemed to be a part of his life no matter where he went, even after his arrest, Sarah Kellen Vickers, wife of NASCAR driver Brian Vickers, and all-around evil, disgusting witch. This lady has lived high on the hog for far too long, folks. She has lived this jet-setter's life while the survivors have had to scrape and claw and scratch to dig out of the misery that these people put them in, to get someone to listen to them, the fight that these survivors have had to put up and what they have had to go through just to get to this point. For people to listen to what they have to say has been extraordinary. But guess what? Justice is coming. And this year, 2020, these predators have turned into the prey. I've told you guys that for months now, and I stand by it. There is no way that these people are going to get away with this. You can do a lot of things in life. You can steal, typical politician. You can grift, typical politician. You can lie, typical politician. You can even cheat on your wife. What you cannot do, under any circumstances, is abuse children. You want to get our attention? Well, my friend, you most certainly have it now. And Sarah Kellen Vickers and the rest of the core four, my eyes are firmly on you. You're next. It is your turn to be arrested. It is your turn for bologna sandwiches and jumpsuits. The question is, when are those arrests going to occur? Today's article is from the Telegraph, and the author, Josie Ensor, was kind enough to give us access to the original article behind the paywall. So Josie, thank you very much for giving us that access. I appreciate it, and I am sure that the listeners do as well. Now, let's jump into the article and see what we have to see about Sarah Kellen Vickers and the core four. Scanning through leaked flight logs from Jeffrey Epstein's private jet between 2001 and 2006, an unfamiliar name crops up time and time again. 350 times to be precise. Only Epstein himself and longtime associate Ghislaine Maxwell appear to have flown more often than Sarah Kellen on the plane dubbed the Lolita Express. And this is why Sarah Kellen Vickers is such a huge component of this. And this is why she's a key to a RICO case as well, in my opinion. She was on this plane more than anybody else. She saw what was going on. she knows what was going on. And in fact, I bet you she has some names. I bet you she knows a lot of the unnamed girls that we talk about from places like Eastern Europe who came into Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's orbit and then were jettisoned and discarded and nobody knew anything else about them ever. Well, I'd like to know what Sarah Kellen Vickers knows about them. And furthermore, I'd like to know what she knows about everything. Miss Kellen, described by Epstein survivors as Miss Maxwell's lieutenant, is accused by them of procuring women and underage girls for the late financier, pedophile. And that's definitely a fact. Remember how I explained all of this when it was first starting. Now you have Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein in leadership roles, if we're talking about it like it's structured like the mafia, right? So you have the Godfather and the underboss, or the shadow boss and the acting boss, whichever way you want to go about it. And below that, you have capo regimes. And what that means is they're captains of their own crew. They report directly to the underboss, and the underboss obviously reports directly to the boss. And all of these women were acting in a capacity that you would find capo regimes in the mafia acting in. And that's just a fact. That is without doubt. When you listen to the reports of not only the survivors, but the lawyers for the survivors, and you look at all the circumstantial evidence that we have compiled in over 500 episodes, it's impossible to see them in any other light. Little has been heard of, or from, the 40-year-old and 3 other alleged female co-conspirators since they were given immunity from prosecution under a highly unusual sweetheart deal struck between Epstein and the U.S. Attorney for South Florida in a 2008 criminal case. And now we know that it was Acosta who struck that deal with them, but we also know it's a lot deeper than that, right? Acosta was pressured from on high. Acosta has been on the record saying that he was told hands off of Epstein because Epstein belonged to intelligence. So there are a lot of unanswered questions here, right? Acosta's certainly not a good guy in this story. He's like everybody else pretty much, a gray character. The arrest last week of Miss Maxwell at the behest of the attorney's office in New York, which has said it is not bound by the Florida agreement, has now raised the prospect that the investigators may turn next to the quartet, aka the Core Four. And there's no doubt, they are a huge part of this criminal conspiracy. And if the feds use all the tools available to them within their toolbox, they will be bashing these women over the head with RICO charges very soon. Because remember, folks, it only takes 2 people involved in a crime together for it to be a criminal conspiracy. And once it's a criminal conspiracy, well, that opens up my favorite book of crimes, and that is RICO. Can we have some RICO charges, please? The Telegraph understands that authorities are looking into the alleged role played by Miss Kellen, Adriana Ross, Leslie Groff, and Nadia Marcinkova in Epstein's sex trafficking ring and eyeing possible charges. I can confirm that myself, like I said, independently. A source has reached out to me, a pretty credible source, and they said that these women most certainly are under investigation. They didn't go any further than that. They didn't say when to expect charges, if to expect charges, anything like that. But I can confirm independently that these women most certainly are under investigation. The women have been accused of being his recruiters, groomers, sexual partners, and friends, an organized network of underlings who reportedly received huge salaries and perks in return. And again, folks, I hate to keep beating this dead horse, but how is it that R. Kelly and his people got slapped with RICO charges and we still have not seen them in this case? I just don't understand it. Now, don't get me wrong, they could still be coming, right? But once we see RICO charges slapped on these people, we know for a fact the government means business. And the core 4, these 4 women, I don't think I've ever seen a group of people who deserve charges more than these women at this point. What they helped Jeffrey Epstein do, what they helped Ghislaine Maxwell do, and the pain and suffering that they have caused, you really can't quantify it with words. These people are truly evil. They accuse Miss Kellen of running a Rolodex of women and girls that she would arrange to visit Epstein wherever he was. And we know that Kellen was the key, right? She was right under Ghislaine Maxwell, the top lieutenant, the top capo regime, and she was in charge of all sorts of scumbaggery. How many of the survivors do we need to hear from? All of them have come out and said they've had very disgusting experiences with Ghislaine Maxwell and the Core Four. So with Ghislaine Maxwell, the head of this snake in custody, I don't see it being much longer before all of these other serpents meet the same fate. When Jeffrey wanted me, Sarah Kellen or Ghislaine would call me into his bedroom and I had no choice to go, said Sarah Ransom, who was a 22-year-old student when she claimed she was abused and trafficked by Epstein and his associates. Just think about that. Being stuck in this trafficking ring with this gross-ass son of a bitch, Jeffrey Epstein, and all of these gross, disgusting women that are working for him. And you're stuck in the orbit here. You're part of a trafficking ring. And Jeffrey Epstein is in control of everything that you do. I can't even imagine being caught up in this man's spiderweb. Miss Ransom alleges the pair would also give her tips on how to give Epstein erotic massages, including how to rub his feet and best satisfy him sexually. Sarah Kellen knew for every girl that she organized to go on that island, Little St. James in the U.S. Virgin Islands, or to be picked up by a car to go to New York, to the New York mansion, she knew that these girls were there to be abused repeatedly. Point blank, period. Sarah Ransom unleashed, letting you know that this happened, that Kellen was a part of it. What more do the authorities need? There is plenty here, folks, circumstantially, and never mind eyewitness accounts. So the only thing that could be happening, in my opinion, is they're really tightening up the charges that they're going to drop on these ladies. They want to make sure everything is ironclad, and they want to make sure that the charges are so severe that these women have no choice but to flip on each other. That is the only thing that can be holding it back, in my opinion, right now, why they haven't been arrested yet. But I have to tell you, I think it's imminent. I think that these women will be arrested very, very soon. According to court papers, Miss Kellen and British heiress Miss Maxwell told the girls not to speak to authorities about their interactions with Epstein. This is another thing that Epstein and the Core Four did. They intimidated witnesses, they paid witnesses off, and they were involved in all sorts of evidence tampering. They might not sound like serious charges compared to the other ones, right? But again, remember, the more charges that are slapped on these people, the better, because that means the chances are something severe is going to stick. And that's what you see in criminal enterprise cases all the time. This is how they destroy criminal enterprises, folks. We're seeing it right now, witnessing it live in front of us. The question is, how far is the federal government really going to go? Miss Maxwell has denied all charges against her. Miss Kellen, who was 22 and had just been cast out of Jehovah's Witness following a divorce when she met Epstein, has claimed to have been manipulated sexually and psychologically by the billionaire for years. Sorry, Sarah Kellen Vickers, you're not using that excuse. Not you, not Ghislaine Maxwell, none of you. The only one of the Core Four who has a legitimate leg to stand on about that kind of excuse is Nadia Marcinkova, who was sold, allegedly, to Jeffrey Epstein when she was 14 years old. Now, I am certainly not a psychologist, and I will certainly not get into all of the psychology of a situation like that. But one thing I know is the Stockholm Syndrome is certainly a real thing. And as the Core Four go, the only one of these people who should be shown any mercy if they cooperate, if they come forward, if they're willing to talk, is Nadia Marcinkova. Now, that does not mean she should not get any penalty. I believe that all of them deserve time in jail. But the only one that I believe deserves any leniency at all in any sort of realm is Nadia Marcinkova. The rest of these women were not victims. The rest of these women were not brought into this against their will. They knew what they were doing. And Jeffrey Epstein's been dead for about a year now. Why haven't any of these women come forward if it was because they were scared of Jeffrey Epstein? So that dog doesn't hunt either, okay? In a previous statement to CBS News, lawyers for Ms. Kellen claim that she scheduled appointments for Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell at their direction. Yeah, well, guess what? That's not a good excuse either. Oh, well, I was told to murder this whole village. I was under orders. I don't care. You're still a war criminal, asshole. Miss Kellen is aware of the pain and damage Epstein caused and deeply regrets that she had any part in it, they said. If she really cared and she truly wanted to come forward and make amends, that is what she would do. Not give canned statements through her lawyer. What does that even mean? Oh, she's sorry for any pain caused. What do you mean? You were part of the pain. Sorry would be coming forward and taking responsibility for your part as a lieutenant in Jeffrey Epstein's criminal enterprise. How about that? She did not respond to the Telegraph's request for comment. Ms. Marcinkova, another assistant, says she was herself a sex slave who was brought by Epstein to the U.S. from Slovakia when she was 15 before she is alleged to have started helping procure other girls. And this is what I was just touched on a moment ago. Nadia Marcinkova is the only one, in my opinion, that deserves any sort of look at leniency. Because of the situation, because of the circumstances, how she was brought into Jeffrey Epstein's orbit. Remember, she was a child as well. So we have to keep that in mind. And remember, we're not looking for revenge here, folks. We're looking for justice, okay? We're not them. We want justice. We want trials, and we want prosecutions. That's what we want. And I'm not here to, destroy people's lives who don't need their life, who weren't involved in this or anything like that. But the fact remains, anybody who was involved in this, and these girls, these women, they all need to face the music. But Marcinkova is one person where I do have a bit of empathy for her, and I think that if she comes forward and she acts as a witness, she should get a substantially less amount of time than these other women. Now, of course, she should still do time. And when I say time, I think at least 10 years. But again, I don't think I'm qualified to make that determination, right? I'm not a psychologist by any means. I don't know how much of an impact it truly has. I'm just talking about from where I'm sitting, how it looks to me. The women have faced numerous civil lawsuits, but never criminal ones. Anti-trafficking organizations say determining criminal liability is complicated if a person has been exploited for sex, then used to recruit others. So I will have to defer to the trafficking organizations because, again, I'm not equipped to deal with the psychology of all of this. I've said that a lot here on the podcast. I only talk about what I'm qualified to talk about, folks. Ms. Marcinkova and Ms. Ross have exercised their right to remain silent when questioned on the allegations. Ms. Groff denied having anything to do with Epstein's sexual misconduct through a lawyer in 2019. And Leslie Groff and Epstein were super close. When Leslie Groff was having a kid, Jeffrey Epstein had all kinds of stuff to say about it. How he couldn't lose her, how she acted as his other brain. Yeah, bought her a Mercedes, gives her, these girls were all making over $200,000 a year, where most of the assistants on Wall Street are making like $70K. So he was paying them an exorbitant amount of money. Him and Leslie Groff were super close. I mean, super close as far as Jeffrey Epstein's meetings and what he was up to. Groff was involved in all of that. After 2008, Miss Kellen appeared to drop off the radar, deleting or setting to private social media accounts and using the name Sarah Kensington to set up an interior design company, SLK Designs. Again, must be nice, huh? She could just change her name and go on with her life like nothing happened. Meanwhile, these survivors are left with this huge burden of what Sarah Kellen Vickers was involved with, what Sarah Kellen Vickers done to them. Well, it might have taken a long time, but justice most certainly is on its way. In 2010, she was interviewed as part of civil proceedings along with Epstein's other assistants, but invoked her right under the Fifth Amendment not to answer questions put to her under oath. Probably a good idea, right? Because we know how the FBI rolls. We know about perjury. We understand that they love that charge, and they will dog walk you right into that. So she was smart to plead the fifth, no doubt about that, and I am sure Mr. Dershowitz had something to do with her pleading the fifth. We know that Dirty Dersh was advising all of these people. Come on, he might not say he is, but he was. She married Brian Vickers, a NASCAR driver, 3 years later, and now appears to spend her time between the couple's homes in New York, Miami, and North Carolina. Must be nice, huh? 3 homes? Must be real nice to run around after your crime spree and live the life of Riley. Disgusting. It's such a black eye to the disgusting justice system here in America. It makes me sick, honestly, man. It really does. That this lady has been able to run around for all of these years after everybody knew in 2008 what she was about, what she was involved in, what she was doing. And yet, she was able to get away with it for so long. Well, revenge is sweet, baby. And when this lady finally gets arrested, it will be the justice that these survivors have craved for years. The question now is whether Miss Maxwell, 58, who is facing 35 years in prison if found guilty of charges of recruiting women and underage girls for Epstein to sexually abuse that she denies, will work with prosecutors to build a case against the alleged co-conspirators. Honestly, I really don't even think that they need Maxwell's testimony for these co-conspirators. I mean, it'll be nice, right? The prosecutor always wants as much testimony as possible against potential criminals. But I think that if they're going to be juicing Ghislaine Maxwell, it's going to have to be up the chain. Very rare do people rat down in an organization. It happens, there's no doubt. And it could be part of the proffer. But mainly what they want are bigger fish. And there are some bigger fish in this story. There is no doubt about it. The question is, once again, how far are the feds willing to go? She will name names. She's a drowning rat, Christina Oxenberg, a distant cousin of Prince Andrew, a.k.a. the Joe Exotic of the Windsor family, who knew Miss Maxwell in the 90s, told The Telegraph. Enablers like Sarah Kellen should be given up by Maxwell. Well, look, Maxwell's definitely singing. I've said this from the jump. She ain't built for this life. She ain't built for this life. She has no idea about prison. She has no idea about being turned into a criminal informant. She has no idea about a 302 statement. She has no idea about any of this. And furthermore, after she is convicted and she's in prison, her life is going to be so miserable. As a chomo, someone who molests children, forget it. Miss Oxenberg, who is writing a memoir entitled Secrets, claims the daughter of British publishing magnate Robert Maxwell confided to her in 1997 that she brought in other women to help satisfy Epstein's needs. Whatever. She said Miss Maxwell told her she had wiretapped the jets for leverage and speculated that any resulting audio and video recordings could potentially incriminate co-conspirators and high-profile figures who traveled with Epstein. We know that's a fact. We know that everything was wired up. We know that there are a bunch of videos. The question is, who's in possession of them? My guess is the FBI, and it's probably a treasure trove. Again, how far are they willing to go? Gloria Allred, puke, garbage, stink, who was representing a number of Epstein survivors, said she was not sure if Miss Maxwell was seeking to make a deal or whether the SDNY would accept. It has to be a two-way street, she told this paper. The FBI and prosecutors could also look at what dealings Epstein and Miss Maxwell had with Miss Kellen and others following his release from prison in 2009. Absolutely, that's part of the scope. The whole entire relationship is under investigation as far as I know. According to the source I spoke with, it is a very wide-ranging scope. Transactions made by Epstein were laid bare this week as part of investigation by New York State financial regulators into oversight at Deutsche Bank. According to the regulators, Epstein, who died in an apparent suicide in a Manhattan jail cell last year while awaiting trial, sent $2.65 million in 120 wire transfers through an account set up in 2014. They found that some of the payments from the account and others were made to the 4 co-conspirators named in the 2008 case. Money laundering, wire fraud, witness tampering, paying off co-conspirators. Hello, Rico! Miss Kellen is also reported to have visited Epstein several times in prison while he was serving an 18-month sentence for sex crimes involving a minor, and was pictured with him in 2012 after his release. While Miss Ransom welcomed the arrest of Miss Maxwell, she said further charges needed to be brought for her to feel that justice had been served. I have faith that maybe I'll get another day in court where I can face the co-conspirators, the people that helped Jeffrey rape me every day. That's powerful stuff from Sarah Ransom, folks. And Sarah, that is exactly what we're pushing for. For you to have your day in court, to stare across at those who abused you and watch them catch the sentencing of a lifetime. Because that is what's coming. These women are no longer in the shadows. The general public now know who they are. And the cry for justice is ringing from every single continent around the world. The question now is, when will the federal government of the United States provide us with that justice? If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. Inside of the description box, you will find a link to the article, and you will also find a link to the GoFundMe account if you would like to help out the podcast. All right, everybody, we'll be back later on with a little bit more.